grace so sweet. Oh, it floods my soul and hope eternal won't let go. My debt erased at Calvary when Jesus, Jesus rescued me. Jesus, Jesus rescued me. And I'll sing forever when love come down. My hands to heaven, shout your praises loud. Lost in darkness when you pulled me out. I will sing forever when your love come down. Will there stay home beyond the sky? A song will sing for all of time. The grave is empty and I am free, 'cause Jesus, Jesus rescued me. Yes, Jesus, Jesus rescued me. Come on. And I will sing forever of your love come down. With my hands to heaven, shout your praises loud. I was lost in darkness when you pulled me out. I will sing forever of your love come down. I will sing forever of your love come down. With my hands to heaven, shout your praises loud. I was lost in darkness when you pulled me out. I will sing forever of your love come down. I will sing forever of your love come down. I will sing forever of your love come down.
Well, what a great and fun way to get started at our services this weekend. Thanks so much for sharing part of your Labor Day weekend with us. I know a lot of you are joining us online today, maybe from up north or from the lake or somewhere. We're not mad at you. We're just all really jealous. But we're here and you're not, and we're having a great time. Things have started well. Hopefully you've had a good start to your Labor Day weekend. I had an amazing start to my Labor Day weekend. Just real quick aside, college football is back, which I'm just so fired up about. Some of you are college football fans. I love that. If you're from Washington, I'm sorry. I apologize. We're going to be at odds for a second. I hope we could still be friends, but my Auburn Tigers got a huge win yesterday, which got my weekend off to a great start. If you're brand new to our church, or you've just walked in, or somebody invited you and you don't care about college football, that's okay. We're really glad you're here. And I just want to say welcome to you. As the t-shirt says, you belong here. Hopefully by the end of today, you'll feel like you belong here. You'll want to be a part of what's happening here at Mission. Before you leave today, please, on your way out, stop at one of our hub kiosks. We'd love to just say hello to you. If you are new, we'd love to just really get to know your name. And we have a free gift for you just for showing up today. We'd love to give you on your way out. So make sure you stop by there before you leave today. We're going to continue to sing in just a moment, but we're going to do something today brand new. In fact, if you're here at Mission today and you showed up in the building, we're going to do something to my knowledge, we've never done before. Several weeks ago, I heard a message that was preached by a mentor of mine. In fact, for 17 years, he was my mentor and my boss. But more importantly, he was a pastor to me. And it was such a pastoral message. And when I heard it, I thought, man, I just want to rip that up. It's so good. And I just thought, I want everybody in our church to hear that. I thought about sending it out on social media, but I know you're all busy. And I know you wouldn't have watched it anyway. So I got a captive audience, and I wanted you to hear it today. So today, we're going to watch a video message from Andy Stanley. And if you're somebody who's going, we're going to watch a video, or yeah, somebody's clapping. I like to hear that. So, but if you're like thinking video message, or are we becoming a video church now, just stop all of that. Like, the reason we're watching this message today is because I saw it and I thought, I wish everybody could hear that. It's so challenging as a believer, as a Christian, even if you're not a Christian. I think there's something in this that's going to really challenge you today. So we're going to do that in just a little bit. You're going to get a special message from Andy, but I didn't want you to be surprised when we went to video. And the truth is most of you watch the screens anyway, don't you? In fact, the most awkward thing for me every week when I preach is the people that sit right down here, you're just past the 4 or 5 rows, I want to say, hey, I'm right here. Like, you can look, you're looking over there, you're looking over there, and we're like this close. Anyway, so we're all going to look at the screens today, and I think you're going to be really challenged. The name of the message is Wishful Thinking. Before that, there is somebody who's somewhat of royalty who's in our midst today, and you don't know this, but just recently we had a staff member who was our longest tenured staff member. She just retired from our staff, and you wouldn't know her, but she's been on the front lines for 18 years as a part of our staff. Her name is Kay Sutliff, and she's sitting right up there. She's sitting intentionally in the dark, and you can't see her, and I'm not gonna make her come up here, because if you know Kay, I would be in a huge trouble if I made her come up here. But Kay, we've already sort of celebrated Kay, but I got her something today, and I wanna take it all the way up to her, because I know she wouldn't wanna come all the way down here. Would you help me thank Kay Sutliff? This is Kay, and you don't know Kay, but Kay is sat at our front desk. She's been on the front lines for years and years and years, and for somebody who doesn't like to be up front, you sat up front for all of those years, and we are all so grateful for the part you played in our church, and I'm so excited for you as you head into retirement. I also have one other thing for you and Gary. Gary and Kay last year got a coin for serving for 10 years, but I realized we made a mistake, because they've been serving for 20 years, and we don't have a 20-year coin, so I'm giving you a second 10-year coin, so because you both deserve it. So we're grateful for your impact on our church. Thank you so much. Yeah, we love you guys. Hey, we're glad you're here today. If that wasn't something that was a part of what you're anticipating today, we're still glad you're here. Why don't you say hello to somebody who's sitting next to you? Tell them, give them a thumbs up if your college football team won, thumbs down if they didn't, and a thumbs to the side if they didn't care, and we'll jump back in just a second.
By the power of your blood, you have won my innocence, and in the power of the cross, you forgot sin, all my sin, and now on my heart this word is written, forgiven on my heart. This word is written, forgiven, no guilt or shame can know. I'm covered by your mercy on my heart. This word is written, forgiven. this on my heart, this word is written. I'm forgiven on my heart. This word is written. Forgiven. No guilt or shame can hold me, 'cause I'm covered by your mercy on my heart. This word is written. Forgiven, I'm forgiven.
Let the king of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the king of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. You are good. You are good, good. You are good, good. You are good, you're good. Let the king of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the king of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. Let the king of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the king of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. You are good, good. Oh, you are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good. Oh, you are good. You're good.
And you're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. Sing that out. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. Come on. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. I love that line in that song, "You're never gonna let me down." I love it because it's true. We believe that that's true, that we look to a God that 2,000 years ago sent his son for us in our place to die, in our place for our sins, to demonstrate how much he loved us and how much grace he has towards us. And none of that runs out. His love doesn't lessen, no matter what you walked in here today with, whatever you did last night or yesterday or last week or you will do tomorrow. God's love does not change for you. And so as we continue our worship today, we continue by giving back to God with our tithes and offerings. So this time you can go ahead and take a seat, and I'll invite forward our volunteers.
Hey, Mission Community Church, I'm Andy Stanley in Atlanta, Georgia. And a few weeks ago, I flew Joel out here to preach for me, to fill in for me. And he asked if I could come out there and fill in for him, which I couldn't, which actually turns out to your advantage because now you don't have to take me to lunch. But anyway, a few weeks ago, I preached a message for our church. It's called Wishful Thinking, where I talked about 5 things that I wish for our church. And when Joel heard the message, he said, Andy, those are the same 5 things I wish for my church as well. So I sent him a copy of the message. We're going to show it this morning, so I hope you enjoy Wishful Thinking. As the title package indicated, today is going to be a little bit different because one of the challenges, one of the downsides for being in such a giant church like we are and spread out all over the city and all over the country and all kind of cool stuff going on, a lot that you don't know about and don't need to know about because you're busy raising kids and having jobs and dating and all that stuff. But you're part of this enormous thing that just keeps growing. And the downside for me personally is that I know so very few people. And you walk up to me in the halls or in the stores or in the community and go, hey, Andy, you don't know me. And then, you know, it's not embarrassing, it's just unfortunate. So every once in a while I think, gosh, I wish I didn't have to preach a bunch of sermons and just communicate through sermons and email. I wish I could just come out and just talk. So today, I may start doing that more often, but today we're kind of between series. So I just thought I would just come out here and tell you some stuff that I've been thinking about. Now, if this is your first time with us, you could not have picked a better Sunday to be in the buildings with us or a better Sunday to be watching online, even if somebody's forcing you to watch online and won't feed you lunch unless you sit down and watch this, whatever the situation is. Because you're going to kind of find out what we're about. You're going to find out a little bit more about what I'm about. about and really what's most important to me as it relates to you, because today I want to give you 5 things. You're not going to need to write these down because you're only maybe 1 or 2 will be applicable to you, but 5 things that I wish for you. And here's what I mean by that. If we were to sit down over coffee or lunch and you were to say, Andy, I've been going to the church for a while, and what just kind of give me the bottom line. What do you hope happens to me as a part of Brownsbridge Church or North Point Community Church or Southside Church or Woodstock City or Buckhead Church or whatever campus that you're a part of or wherever you watch from? What's the thing? So today I just want to give you these 5 things. This to me is sort of the essence of who we are, but more importantly, it's kind of the essence of what I wish for you, just putting on my pastor, not preacher hat, but my pastor hat for just a few minutes. And these things will make your relationships richer, but more importantly, it'll make your faith journey more exciting. And if Christianity is boring to you, you're not doing it right, okay? Because Christianity isn't boring. Sometimes we're boring, but the Christian faith really is a journey, and it's an exciting journey. And the last thing I want is for your faith to get stale. In fact, I think one of the reasons people quit going to church, it's not that they necessarily quit believing everything. It just doesn't seem to matter anymore. So if your version of the Christian faith is just so vanilla that it doesn't even seem to matter, I don't want to offend you, but there may be something you don't know, or you may not be doing it right. So anyway, this isn't much of a sermon, so there's not going to be a whole lot of verses. This is just kind of from my heart to you. So here's the first thing, 5 things. The first one I'm going to spend the most time on, so when you look at your watch after the end of number 1, don't think that much time times 4 more. Okay, we're not going to be here all day. So the first one is kind of the big one. In fact, I thought about making this the whole message because it's such a big idea. But I really, really, really wish for you, whether you're in high school or college, or you've been newlywed, or you're dating, or you just went through a divorce, or you're senior and you're about to retire, regardless of your age, I wish for you a courageous act of obedience that cost you something. This is what I would wish for you, which is not what you would wish for you, but it's what I would wish for you. That you would have those moments, not every day, not every month, not even really every year. But I wish for you a moment in time, an experience every once in a while where you feel that internal nudge, and you know that there's a divine element to that internal nudge, and you need to do something. You need to make a big step, a courageous act of obedience that costs you something. A decision where you don't know where it's going to end up, but you know in your heart God has nudged you to do this. And not something that you manufacture, not something like, okay, I'm going to test God, I'm going to prove God, I'm going to quit my job, not that. I'm just going to marry the next person. No, this isn't that. This isn't foolishness. But to go too long without giving in to that internal nudge to do something unusual, again, not something that you manufacture, but something that you sense that, wow, every time I pray, every time I'm silent, every time I'm quiet, I just feel like God is nudging me in a direction to say yes to that nudge when it comes along. And by the way, this is how you become a deep Christian. This is how you become deep. I don't know if you grew up in a church tradition where, the sermon would be really confusing, and you thought it was confusing, but somebody said, that was so deep. And you thought, I just thought it was confusing. They said, no, it's not confusing, it's deep. That's what we call deep. If you don't understand it, it's deep, okay? That's completely wrong, okay? Deep is not information, and deep certainly isn't confusing information. Deep is transformation that results from personal obedience to God. Deep is when you say yes, and you don't know where that yes will lead. And that is the story of our faith from Genesis all the way through Jesus. It is the story of the faith of the people that you have the most respect for. In fact, the Christians that you have the most respect for, even if you're not a Christian, but you know some Christians, or it was your mother, your dad, or your grandfather, and you don't necessarily want to be one, but you have so much respect. It's not what they knew that impressed you. It's the way they lived in spite of. That is what impressed you. It's the men and women who are faithful in spite of, who make big decisions in spite of the fact that they don't know how it's going to end up. That's what deepens our faith. It's saying yes. Deep is when you can't touch bottom, right? Deep is when you're in over your head. Deep in terms of spirituality and following God is obedience when there's no guaranteed outcome. And when you say yes to that internal nudge, and some of you know exactly what I'm talking about today because you've been wrestling with it, you've been talking about it, you talked to your girlfriend about it, your husband and you have been talking about it, you called your mom the other night to talk about it, you just have this sense That's when your faith journey becomes exciting because you will pray harder. No one will have to say, have you prayed? You're like, have I prayed? That's all I do is pray because I'm so worried because I'm saying, God, I'm going to do this. But of course, I'm so dialed into God, I don't even think I could sin. I mean, I am so, tuned in because I'm so conscious of the fact that if God doesn't come through for me, then, I don't know what's going to happen, but I just sense this is what God wanted me to do. You will listen attentively. You'll take notes. The Bible will come alive. You'll lean in. And here's why. And I've been teaching you this for many, many years. When your expression of faith, you know what expression of faith is? Faith is, I believe. Faith is, I'm going to act on what I believe. That's what faith is. That's what walking by faith is. I believe it, therefore I'm going to act as if it's true. I'm not making it true, and I don't think believing it makes it true. That's magic. That's not Christianity, by the way. Christian faith is, I trust that what God has said is true, and I trust that what God is asking me to do is what I need to do. So when your expression of faith intersects with God's faithfulness, I'm telling you, something happens on the inside. You're never going to be the same. It becomes a stake in the ground. It becomes a defining moment for your faith. And anytime you tell this story, it's emotional because you obeyed without any kind of guaranteed outcome. And God came through for you. And God responded. And I'm telling you, people can argue all day long, I don't know if there's a God. And you're like, okay, let me just tell you what happened. It becomes a stake in the ground for your faith. Again, if you go too long ignoring those internal nudges, and I'm just going to tell you, okay, the older you get, the more there is at stake, the more there is at risk, the less likely you are to say yes. And if you go too long without saying yes to God every once in a while when God nudges you on the inside, your faith will get stale, it will get old, it will get boring, it'll be, John 11, yeah, I know, Lazarus is raised from the dead again, what do you know? I mean, you'll just kind of go there, I know, 5 stones, killed Goliath, I know the story. It'll just be flat, but I'm telling you, what makes you rich in faith and what makes you deep in faith is not what you know, and it's not even what you're learning. It's what you are experiencing. This is why Jesus, in his brilliant, brilliant way, said to the people in the first century, not sit down and take notes or learn from me. His initial invitation was come, follow me. And if you don't get this right, and if you ignore this for too long, you'll get cynical as a Christian. You'll start complaining about all the dumbest things, all the wrong things. You'll start to get old as a Christian, but not mature, just older, okay? So, for us, the reason this is such a big deal for me and the reason I love to talk about it to our churches is this is the story of our church. Because I had a really good job with a really good future, and Sandra and I just felt that nudge to leave. And every time something awesome happens at one of our churches, honestly, it's so emotional to us, especially baptism stories. She'll turn to me, and we can't even speak anymore during baptism. We can't. We just look at each other, and we know what we're thinking because so many years ago, there was this big, emotional, incredible baptism, and Sandra said, what if, this is what she said, she whispered in the service, what if we hadn't left? In other words, what if we had stayed with the secure thing and the sure thing and the we got it all worked out thing and all the details are in place thing? What if we hadn't left? It's like, it's still so emotional for me. Then a few years ago, we felt that nudge to become foster parents. I mean, talk about scary. What? The door's you're gonna get a phone call and we're gonna bring some children with a plastic bag with the only clothes they have and leave them at your house. I'm busy. I'm really busy, right? But sometimes you just know. And when you know, you gotta go. A few years ago, our lead pastor at Brownsbridge Church left suddenly. Those of you at Brownsbridge, you know this. I told you the story. 2 days, 3 days later, I'm sitting on my couch, having my quiet time, and it's just like, I don't know, it wasn't a voice. God didn't speak to me. I wish he would. If God could speak to me, I'd give him a list of things I'd like to know. Like some really important things, like a cure for a disease, that would be cool, but it's for me, I don't know what I would understand what he was saying if he told me. But I'm sitting on my couch, and I just knew. It was just a moment where I knew, Andy, you go to Brownsbridge on Sunday, you step in as lead pastor, and you commit to a year. It was just like, you just know. And I told Sandra, she said, what are you going to do about your other jobs? I said, I don't know. Sometimes you just know. And it was an extraordinary year. I mean, it was and everything got done. When you know, you just got to go. For some of you, it's time to leave that job. And you're scared to death. Of course you're scared to death. Guess what? If you're a Christian and you feel a nudge to leave your job and do something else, no one's going to have to tell you to pray. You're going to show up at church and see these worship songs, and the words are going to light up, and you're going to go like, that's my favorite song. And your husband's going to be like, we've been singing that song for 8 years. I know, but I love that song. Why? Because the words, the lyrics are going to connect with what you've stepped out in faith, not to do something foolish, not something you came up with. Some of you need to take that job. I just don't feel qualified. Guess what? You step into a job, you step into a role, you're not qualified. No one's going to have to tell you to pray. No one's going to have to tell you to open the scripture. No one's going to have to tell you to live dependent on God. You're going to walk into the office every day going, I'm in over my head, and God's going to go, good. That's what deep is. Deep is over your head where you have to look up to me for help. This will be a story you tell for the rest of your life. Some of you need to get out of this country and go on a global X trip with us. Every time we talk about serving people in other parts of the world, you're like, I really need to do that. I think I'll just support somebody else. Here's the check. Because for many of us, it is easier to write checks than to get up and go do something. And the older you get and the richer you get, the easier it is to say, I'm just going to write a check. I don't want to go to all the hassle. And I feel like your Father in heaven says, well, then you miss out, because you'll never know what I would have done in you if you had gotten up and done something. And, respond to that internal nudge to do something outside of your comfort zone. Some of you, you've been for a long time, it felt like you needed to go teach school and get out of the marketplace and go back into a world that you've maybe felt called to or even trained to do, teach school. Some of you need to volunteer. Every time we talk about volunteers, it's like, I know I need to. And some of you need to downsize and do something else with all that money. Some of you need to start that business you've been putting off, but you're scared to death, but you just kind of know. It's almost like it's like a God thing. It's like, I feel like this is like a spiritual thing. Some of you, if I could get real personal, you need to break up with her. You need to break up with him. And you've known, let me just put on my parent hat for a long time, for a minute. You have known this for so long. Your friends know he or she is a loser for you and not good for you. They're not losers in life. It's just that you aren't good together. It's time, and you're so scared, yeah, but what if nobody else comes along? Guess what? They may not. But you'll never know. And here's the thing. Look up here. I'm not done. Well, this is very important. When you get out of that relationship, do you know what's going to happen on the inside of you? Your attentiveness to your heavenly Father is going to increase exponentially, because as long as you are in a relationship that you know you shouldn't be in, you have put God to the side because he keeps getting on your case. And do you know why he gets on your case? Because he loves you. So get out of that relationship, break up. Some of you just need I got one clap down here. Come on. You must be a mother. Are you? Yes. Yeah, we got a mom down here going, hallelujah, somebody finally said it. Some of you, I challenge you all the time, singles, who I'm just so glad we have so many college students and single again people in our churches. I love the fact that you found our churches, but you need to take a year off dating. And that scares you to death. Do you know what's going to happen to you during your year off dating? Something's going to happen on the inside of you that when you go back into the market, you are going to be a different and better person. One day Jesus is walking along with his guys, and he offers a man the invitation of a lifetime. He turns to just apparently some random person in the crowd. I don't know, maybe this is a guy who's been following him for so long. Jesus has been paying attention to him, thinking, you know what? I think this guy has potential. And he turns to him and he says, follow me. Now, the guy he was pointing to has no idea what hangs in the balance of this invitation. This is just another rabbi. And where's he from? Nazareth? Nazareth? I've never heard of it. I don't even know anybody from Nazareth in Galilee. I mean, that's like the wrong side of the country, But Jesus turns to this guy and says, follow me. This is the invitation of a lifetime, okay? And he says, but he replied, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. Okay, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. His dad wasn't even dead yet. I mean, if his dad was dead, he wouldn't be there following Jesus. He'd be at his father's funeral, because when people died back then, they didn't wait for days. They were like, boom, funeral, bury him quick. You can't let the body sit out there. And they didn't burn people's body. They actually buried them and then collected their bones later. So his father wasn't even dead yet. This was his way of saying, look, I would love to follow you. Thank you. I'm so honored. But I got to get some things worked out and sorted out. First, I got to get things worked out and sorted out at home. And then when I get things worked out and sorted out, we get that whole will thing done, and my father's gone. Ring me up. I'll follow you, right? Do you know what his name was? No. We'll never know. Opportunity came and it's gone and missed. Still another, same guy, same day rather, not same guy, same day. Still another said, hey, okay, Jesus, loser, okay, but I will follow you, Lord. I will follow you. Okay, this guy, made excuse. I will follow you. But first, let me go back and at least say goodbye to my family. Same thing. I got to go back, get some things sorted out, worked out, sorted out, worked out, sorted out, worked out. And later, when these gentlemen measured what they gained by hesitating against what they gained or what they didn't gain by going. Later on, when they thought through what they gained by hesitating and measured against what they lost by saying no to Jesus, no comparison. Bad decision. And then Jesus says something that seems very harsh to us. It's not quite as harsh to the first century audience as it is to us, but it was still kind of harsh. He said, look, let the dead bury their own dead. Whew. But you, he says to this guy, I'm giving you the opportunity of a lifetime. You have no idea what hangs in the balance of your decision right then and there in that moment to follow me. I'm inviting you to do something out of the ordinary. I'm inviting you, in his case, he was saying, I'm inviting you to be a part of history. Peter, come over here, Peter. Peter, people 2,000 years from now are going to name their children after this guy. What do you think about that? Andrew, come here. They're going to name their kids after Judas. Okay, Bartholomew, come on, lots of Barts, right? Jesus said, look, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God. Now, this was a first century invitation. It's a little bit different than God's invitation to you, but it's the same is true for you. What you gain by hesitating does not compare to what you gain by saying yes. So just say yes and obey. I'll tell you a couple of quick examples. Jeff and Wendy Henderson at Gwinnett Church. He's the lead pastor at Gwinnett Church right now. Jeff and Wendy were leading he was in the marketplace, had a great job with an extraordinary company that all of you have purchased products from, perhaps, or probably. And so Jeff is in marketing, got a great job, but he's leading a starting point group, which is an environment for people who are coming back to faith or who have questions. And they were leading the starting point group in their home. And Jeff and Wendy started feeling that nudge, and Jeff is a preacher's kid, so he knew that, I know too much to know that this is probably not, I don't know. That nudge to get out of the marketplace and to step full-time into ministry. And of course he wrestled with it, and of course he prayed through it. And then Jeff and Wendy said yes. And they came in on our staff and began leading starting point groups professionally. And then Jeff was the first lead pastor at Buckhead Church and navigated the grocery store days. And then Jeff felt another nudge. This time it wasn't from God, it was from me. Not really, kinda. So Jeff then left, leading Buckhead Church, what an extraordinary opportunity. Left Buckhead Church to go to Gwinnett Church to then start over again. And Gwinnett Church, go to the other camera a second. Gwinnett Church, aren't you glad that Jeff and Wendy Henderson said yes to that initial nudge from God? Imagine what you would have missed out on. Imagine what they would have missed out on. That's not the only story. Gavin and Chantel. Gavin, who's the lead pastor of Woodstock City Church, he was a volunteer at Southside at Peachtree City in their student ministry. And then once they got going, again, same thing, just felt that nudge. Okay, it's going to be a pay cut. I don't know where this goes. I'm not really trained to do this. Got out of the marketplace with a fabulous job with another company every one of you have heard before. Stepped into the role there in Peachtree City at Southside Church. And then, just as things are going well, felt that nudge to leave and go to Woodstock to take up the reins and become the leader in a church plant where things weren't going all that well. In fact, things were going so unwell that Gavin and Chantel, with their own money, helped make payroll a couple of times. Some of you at Woodstock City Church don't know that, but you need to. In Woodstock City Church, look around. And that's the result of a lot of your hard work and your generosity, but I'm telling you, aren't you glad that Gavin said, okay, God, I don't know where this is going. It feels like a free fall to me, but yes, absolutely. And my point isn't that all of you need to leave the marketplace and go into ministry. That's not the point at all. The point is this. You are surrounded by and you are influenced by, on a weekly basis, by people. This isn't just a sermon. This is a reality. This is the Christian walk. This is the Christian faith. This is what makes faith exciting. And many of you have stories of your own. And my point is, I just don't want you to miss it, because you don't know what hangs in the balance, and you don't know who hangs in the balance of your decision to say yes to God when you feel that internal prompt. Now, I know for some of you, I've just ruined your day because you had just finally talked yourself out of it, said it's not God, it was the pizza, and I'm not, that's just irresponsible and it's foolish. I just don't want you to miss it. Number two, second wish I have for you, I won't take as long on these next four, is the thrill of knowing you were instrumental in someone's decision to follow Jesus. I can't tell you how I want this for you so much. In other words, I want there to be someone in the world that when they tell their faith story, someone outside of your family, that when they tell their faith story, they mention your name. Ideally, I would love for you to sit in one of our services and watch someone be baptized. And when they tell their story on their video, they mention you by name because you were instrumental in helping them take their first step, their second step, or that final step of faith when they put their faith in Christ. And I'm telling you, when you enter into a spiritual kind of conversation, when you invite someone to church, when you hand that person that book, when you say, hey, can we get together for coffee? Hey, I noticed you said I'd love, when you engage, I mean, come on, you are so dependent on God. You are scared to death. You've called people and say, pray for me. I'm going to call my niece. And, last time we talked, it didn't go so well, but I feel like I'm going to give my husband this book, or I'm going to give this guy at work this thing. And you're so dialed in. I mean, your faith skyrockets. You're so dependent on God. You'll be vulnerable. You'll be over your head. You'll be out of control. You'll be deep. And you know what? That memory will be emotional for you for the rest of your life. It'll be a stake in the ground. It'll be something that holds you when things are tough and things aren't going the way that maybe you want them to go. And I'll tell you the easiest way to jump into this, because I'll just be honest, some of you, you've been a Christian so long, you don't even know any unchurched people anymore. You don't even know any people that are far from God. Or you know 2 or 3 or 4, but they've kind of, you're sort of tapped out on those conversations. You know what you should do? You should join our Starting Point ministry. You should lead a Starting Point group. We will introduce you to some people with some really hard questions, with some really difficult backgrounds, with some really challenging situations. You'll be scared to death. You will pray like you've never prayed before. The Bible will come alive to you, and it's time, because you're getting bored. You're getting a little too cynical, a little too critical. Christianity is getting a little bit too flat for you. Somebody else, you need to get involved with our high school students, middle school students. You became a Christian in high school or middle school. Here's your opportunity to lead some students in a way that you were led, perhaps. It's time to do that, and you felt that nudge. It's time to say yes. I just want this to be a part of your story at least one time. Or invite a neighbor to church. I mean, let me just ask you this. This is convicting me. When is the last time? And when is the last time you showed up at church and you were nervous because you were bringing or meeting someone here for the first time, and you were so nervous, I mean, you're like, Clay, today needs to really be good because it's here, okay? Right? Adam, okay, 3rd row, 2 back, okay, we work together. They said they're gonna give this one time. Adam, do not mess this up for me. When is the last time you evaluated what we do on Sunday morning through the lens of an unchurched friend, unchurched neighbor, maybe an unchurched colleague? When's the last time that happened? Hey, that's why we do this. That's why we do it the way we do it. And in that moment on that Sunday, you will be so dialed in. You will be out of control. You will be deep. Third thing I wish for you, the freedom and the joy that comes from organizing your financial world around Give, Save, Live. The freedom and the joy that comes from not giving, organizing your entire financial world around Give, Save, Live. Now, if you've been around for a while, I have been preaching and teaching this for 20 years, okay? The thing is, I want you to have stuff. I want you to have lots of stuff. I just don't want your stuff to have you, because when your stuff has you, things just don't go well. Things don't go well relationally. Things just don't go well. Besides that, I want you to be the kind of person that God can trust with more stuff because you're so generous with your stuff. Because what you do with your resources this is important. Jesus said this, what you do with your resources is a direct reflection. What you do with your resources is a direct reflection. What you do with what you have is a direct reflection of whose you are. And if you belong solely to yourself, my friends, that is a very small life. You were designed, you were created, not to live for your glory alone, but for the glory of God. And Jesus was so clear that what we do with what we have is an indicator of who truly owns us, of who is the Lord of your life. I mean, you've heard this verse. If you grew up in church 1,000 times, this is brilliant Jesus stuff right here. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. In other words, if I want to know where your heart is, I just need to look at your bills, how you spend your money or how you save your money, how you hoard your money. I'll know where your heart is. And the formula, this is so powerful. Jesus is saying this, look, you want your heart in a different place? Put your money there. Your heart will follow. And if you're not intentional about where you put your money, your heart will just follow where you spend your money. And you may have a lot, you may have a little, but you will become a very small person and you will miss out on God's ultimate purpose and will for your life. And the thing is, God never has access to all of you. And God never has access to all of me until he has access to everything that I have. And when God has access to you, that's when you're free. And I just want you to be free. And this won't happen until you have a plan. This is why I say all the time, everybody, even if you don't go to church, and even if you don't ever come back to this church, and if you never watch again, everybody needs a plan for how they plan to support the local church. Because one day you are going to need a local church. And you are glad there are local churches in your community. Everybody should have a plan for how they plan to support their local church. Not guilt giving, not here comes the bucket again, but a plan. And the thing is, most of you, if you're like most Americans, and I know you're above average, so you're not exactly like most Americans, but a lot of you don't even have a spending plan, much less a giving plan. You know what a spending plan is? It's a two-syllable word, starts with a B. What is it? What's a spending plan? A what? A budget. Yeah, you don't even have a budget. You don't even have a spending plan. So there's no way you can have a giving plan. But I'll make you a promise. I've been doing this a long time. I'll make you a promise. If you start with a giving plan, you will end up with a spending plan. And this spending plan will be far better than you'll ever be able to create a budget unless you start here. Start here, give, save, live. Give, save, live. And here's the thing, and this won't matter to you, but just while I'm telling you what's inside of me. Imagine if all 50,000 of us, adults, a part of our Atlanta area churches, imagine if we got this right. Imagine if we all got rid of our silly debt. And if we pooled our giving and made ourselves wholly available to God, I'm telling you, our potential for good in our communities and in our city, in our world, is unimaginable. The money is in the bank. We already have the resources. We just need, your Heavenly Father invites you to be a part of local churches where people understand the value of giving, saving, and living. And the thing is, I promise you, I wouldn't have the courage to say this. Sandra and I are in. We have been in from the beginning. Twice we've gone without salaries to make sure this thing works. The staff around you, the lead pastors, I mean, we are in. This isn't a gimmick. This isn't a ploy. This isn't, so we're going to have more money. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with where your heart is. And as a pastor, I want your heart to be in the right place. And you can't pray your heart into the right place. You can't behave your heart into the right place. Jesus said, it's more practical than that. Where your resources are going, that's where your heart ultimately lands. Our potential is extraordinary. If you've been a Christian for 5 years or more and you don't have a plan, you don't have a giving plan, oh my goodness, have you been paying attention to what Jesus taught? I mean, that's just unimaginable to me. So that's why I'm going to come back to this over and over. I want you to know the freedom and the joy of a life organized around give first, save second, live on the rest. Give first, save second, live on the rest. Number 4 is this. I wish that you could see the difference that your commitment and generosity has made in churches all over the country and all over the world. And you can't see that. I get to read the letters. I get to see the videos. I get to visit the churches. You're busy people. I just wish if you had a week, if you had a day, if you had 24 hours, if you could catch a glimpse of the difference that you make, not by something special and extraordinary. The fact that you show up every week, the fact that those of you who give generously give, those of you who have a plan for those of you who serve and volunteer, I'm telling you, you are making a difference, and you have been making a difference in churches all over the country, all over the world for over 20 years. You've helped church leaders try new things, stop old things, rethink things, rebuild things, renovate things, change the way they do things, change the way they paint things and decorate things. Just your presence and your consistency. And I want to tell you one quick story to illustrate this, because this kind of thing happens all the time and you're not aware of it, but you're a big, big part of it. There's a gentleman named Lee Kreitcher. He and his wife, Linda, back in the late 70s, started a church in Pittsburgh. And they started in their home, and they got outside their home, they got a place to meet, and things went really well for a while. And about 14 years in, which is a long run, things were not going well, and Lee quit the church and quit the ministry and went into the marketplace and got a really good job with a really good company, and he was done with that. He was kind of burned out. There was just lots of stuff going on. Very heartbreaking for him because his lifeblood was in this church, but just left the church, left ministry. Worked for this company for a few years, got relocated to Atlanta, found North Point Community Church. And those of you at North Point, you don't know Lee. You didn't know this was going on right under your nose. For those of you who serve and show up early and make things awesome there, you didn't know this was happening, but it's happening today. You don't know about it. Lee and Linda and their kids showed up at found North Point Community Church, and it was like, And they weren't so sure they were into the big church thing, but they loved it. They loved the music. Their kids plugged in. They absolutely loved it. Life was good. They're living in Alpharetta. The weather is better. Things are just great. 2 years they're at North Point, and he gets a phone call from a board member at his old church. Now, he's been out of ministry for over 10 years at this point. I mean, that's in the rearview mirror. The board member says, things are not going well here, as you know. Would you please come back? He said, no, but thank you, got to go. No, we're good. Our kids are settled in. It's great. They called. The church had dwindled down to about 150 people, 200 people, almost no children, no high school, no middle school, just older people, aging out, dying church. They kept calling him and calling him and calling him, and at some point, it's a long story I'm shortening, Lee and Linda felt that nudge. He took a 2/3 pay cut, relocated in Pittsburgh, and jumped back in because of what he had seen at North Point and because he knew he needed to go. So we put together a leadership team, bought them all airplane tickets and their spouses, flew everybody to Atlanta and brought them to North Point, and you didn't know they were there. Marched them up and down the halls, went in Woombaland, up street, went into all the environment, sat through the service, got them together and said, okay, you want to do this in Pittsburgh? Do you think this is possible in Pittsburgh? You want to create a church where unchurched people can come and have their faith ignited, and Christians who've fallen away can have their faith reignited? Do you think this is possible in our community? Because if you don't like this, you're not going to like where we're headed, because this is where we're headed. And he went back, and to make a long story short, last year, they averaged over 2,000 people, and they have 3 campuses. Look, they went from this to this. Listen, look up here. Wait. Before you clap. I appreciate it. No, I really do. And I want you to clap in a minute. I just don't want you to miss this. People you will never meet and places you will never visit are returning to church and are returning to faith, returning to hope because of your engagement in your local church. And I'm telling you, preaching, my preaching, Adam's preaching, Gavin's preaching, whoever's preaching did not inspire this. Being with you, watching you serve, watching your enthusiasm, your creativity, your commitment to the local church, that is what ignites a fire in church leaders who need to go back and make a change in their community. On behalf of all the people that you'll never meet and people I'll never meet, really literally all over the world, I can't say thank you enough. I just wish you could see it. I just wish you could experience it, because it would light you up. What you do here goes way, way, way beyond the walls and the halls of our local churches. Last one is this, and this is to a very specific group of you. For those of you who aren't Christians yet, For those of you who have questions we have yet to answer. For those of you who you kind of want it to be true, you're hoping it's true, but you got a bad church experience. Your uncle was a preacher and ran off with, whatever. Or, you went to school and you just learned too much biology to ever be a Christian, whatever your thing is. But you're kind of leaning in this direction. My wish for you is that you would keep seeking, that you would keep asking, and you would keep knocking, and that you wouldn't stop. That to use Jesus' terminology, that you would take a step to follow Jesus. In fact, here's what you'll learn at our churches, because this is what Jesus modeled and what he taught. You can follow before you believe. You can follow until you believe. You can follow before you have all the answers, and you can follow as you get your answers. This is not a one and done. This isn't pray some kind of prayer and boom, magically all your answers or your questions are answered. We don't even teach that or believe that, because in the first century, Jesus said to men who knew nothing, follow me. And their faith was like this the whole time. And apparently that's okay. And we want you to follow. We want you to take a step. We want you to get in starting point and get some of your questions answered. We want you to move closer and closer and closer to the front. We want you to get a Bible. We want you to take your first steps in praying. And we want to be an environment where it's safe for you to do that. And then when the time comes for you to raise your hand and ask a question and connect, we want to be there for you. But my heart's desire for you is that you won't give up the journey and that you won't give up the quest. In conclusion, people ask me all the time, Andy, did you ever envision, all this? No. We passed my vision about 17 years ago, okay? So no. And I want you to hear this from me, that no one is more surprised by all of this than me. And no one is more grateful for all that has happened than me. And no one knows and no one is more aware that it is not about me than me. This, what you've experienced and what you've done, is about a conversation that Jesus had with his disciples on one hot afternoon. They're in the region of Caesarea Philippi. And Jesus says to his guys, hey, what's the word on the street about me? That's not a good question for most of us to ask. But Jesus asked it, hey, what are people saying about me? And they say, well, they think you're a reincarnated prophet. Some of you think that you're John the Baptist come back to life. I mean, they think you're somebody old that's come back in some kind of new form or fashion. And Jesus says, what about you guys? Who do you say that I am? Simon Peter answered, he said, well, you're the Messiah. I mean, we've seen too much. We've experienced too much. You're the Messiah. You're the Son of the living God. And Jesus said to him, Jesus replied, Simon, son of Jonah, for this, blessed are you, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. You finally got the answer right. You are exactly right. I am the Messiah. I am the one who is sent from God. And I tell you, and here's the part that I don't want you to miss. This is why this happens. This is why this works. This is why what you do is so important. And I tell you this, that you are Peter. Kind of did a little wordplay with his name. And on this rock, this declaration that I'm the Christ, the Son of the living God, I will build my ecclesia, my assembly, my gathering, my movement. And the gates of Hades, that is death, will not overcome it. And it didn't, and it won't. And together, we have the opportunity of being a small part of what Jesus began 2,000 years ago that will go until the day he decides to return. So let's get it right. Thank you for working so hard to get it right. And perhaps, we will be a small part of leaving the local church in America better off than how we found it. So pay attention to that internal nudge. Look for that opportunity to get uncomfortable and invite somebody, or give them that book, send them that article, have that conversation. Make a plan for how you're going to support whatever church you go to financially so that your resources are part of what God's up to in the world. And then keep seeking, keep asking, keep on knocking. Those are my wishes. for all of us. Heavenly Father, thank you. Wow, just thank you. And we don't always get it right, but you just use us anyway. Thank you for the folks who arrived at all of our campuses this morning at 6 o'clock in the morning to make sure we could do any of this. Thank you for the folks that are going to have some hard conversations this week with some people with some challenging questions. Thanks for what happens in groups. Thanks for what happens in homes. Thanks for teenagers who love you. Thanks for college students who carve out time to pray and to worship. Thanks for what you're doing all over the world. And thanks for inviting us into it. We just want to get it right. And I pray that we would in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you all next week. Have a great week.
Well, I hope you were challenged and encouraged by that. I know Andy referenced a whole bunch of people and a whole bunch of churches you don't know anything about or people you've never heard of. But those are all people who've become dear friends to me and to us and to our staff. They're part of a network of churches. It's not just the churches that are there that are part of that organization in Atlanta, but hundreds of churches that are joining together to try to create churches that are literally irresistible for anybody and for everyone who wants to attend. So hopefully you're able to look past some of those names and those references today. I know for myself and probably for all of you that there was something in that message that challenged you. And here's my challenge for you, is that you wouldn't leave today. You'd allow that to bother you, that you'd investigate, and that you'd be obedient to whatever it is that was stirring in your heart that you need to do to take a next step. If you're interested in taking a next step in any way, as always, there's folks at the hub on your way out. If you're new, stop by there and say hello to them. If you're somebody, just by the way, as Andy talked about this today, he mentioned baptism. We know there's a lot of people that are new to our church, and you're wanting to put a stake in the ground about your faith and know what it is to really begin a relationship with Christ. We'd love to help you along that way in that journey. If you go on our website, missionaz.org/baptism, it's really easy for you to sign up for that. We'd love to help you take that step and the next step in your journey of faith. If you've been coming for any length of time and you really want to kind of step out of a row and take a step towards a growing relationship with Christ, we'd love to help you with that. Other than that, next week, we're beginning a brand new series called I Want to Know What Love Is. It's a relationship series, and whether you're in a relationship or not, some of you are now taking a year off of dating because of a message you just heard. It's even applicable for you. I hope you'll join us back for that. Actually, Andy's wife, Sandra, is going to be here in the flesh. She and my wife are going to lead a women's event in the mid-August. Ladies, you should be looking out for that. It's going to be a fantastic event. A lot of great things coming up. Make sure you check the website. We'll look forward to seeing you as we begin that brand new series next week. Make sure you invite a friend, and we'll kick that off next weekend right here at Mission. Hope you have a great rest of your Labor Day weekend, and we'll see you next Sunday.